When you're ready, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming here on short notice. We appreciate you following up. I want to start by thanking Gonzalo Pineda. Gonzalo and I go back a decade. I've had him, worked with him as a player, worked with him as an assistant coach in Seattle, and now gotten the chance to work with him as a head coach here in Atlanta. And I just want to compliment him as a person. He's an exemplary human being. He's been a pleasure to work with. He has embodied our core values here at AMBSE and been a consistent steward as far as doing the right thing. Unfortunately, we've not reached or achieved the results that we hoped for. And as a result, we've decided to move in a new direction. In support of that, we've elevated Rob Valentino as our interim head coach, and we'll do everything we can to support Rob going forward. So without further ado, we will turn it over and take your questions.
Thanks, Garth. First question is going to go to Doug Roberson. Doug, go ahead. You should be open.
Garth, was there something you found fundamentally wrong in Gonzalo's coaching or strategy or tactics that resulted in this decision?
No. I think whenever you change coaches, it is on some level an organizational failure. Certainly, that is part of my responsibility as president and CEO to support any head coach and to try to give him the tools and the resources he needs to succeed. And ultimately, the responsibility for a change like this falls on me. Can you question individual decisions? Always, sure, along the way. But Gonzo was always a very collaborative leader. I think he did a great job of working within our staff and with our staff. And I have nothing but good things to say about how he conducted himself, respect to literally everyone in our building. So it really was a function of we needed to have a new voice. We believe that our team has been underachieving. We believe that our team is more talented than what our results have been. And as a result, we were going to try to change the voice at the top and see if we can get more out of the existing group.
Thanks. Next question, we'll go to Sam Jones. Sam, go ahead.
Hey, Garth. We've talked in the past about how much managers can actually impact a game. You're probably well aware that the underlying numbers are very good for this team right now, even though the results necessarily aren't. The roster is the roster. The question for me is, what are you expecting to tangibly change with a new manager in charge?
Look, sometimes a new voice at the top can be a breath of fresh air. Sam, you and I have talked, and that in broad strokes, I think that talent is 80% of the equation, and coaching is 20%. So, but as a pragmatic matter, the thing you can change in the middle of the season is the coach. In terms of trying to affect a different outcome from the same group of players. Obviously, we'll continue to evaluate our entire sporting operation, but that's the reason where, if you get a new guy in training every day, a new guy in the locker room every day, again, without any fault of Gonzalo's, that new voice, that new approach, that may elicit a different response. And because we believe we're talented, because we believe the group still has a lot of potential, because we believe we still have time to make it into the playoffs, we thought the change was appropriate.
Thanks, Sam. Next question, go to Felipe Cardenas. Felipe, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Garth. You mentioned that the evaluation continues regarding the entire sporting operation. Could you go into that? What is that? What will that entail? And are there further decisions down the road in terms of how this roster gets constructed? What is the makeup of the current sporting department, particularly Carlos Bocanegra and his team, who have been involved with squad construction since the very beginning of this club?
Thanks for the question, Felipe. It's a couple parts to it, so let me try to unpack it as best I can, and then you can follow up if I missed anything. But look, I think the easiest way to look at it is to say, hey, I've said, hey, we believe we have a talented team. We have more potential than we've shown. Why? Well, I believe that because I think My skill set is on the soccer side of things, certainly not exclusively that, but I've had some experience on the soccer side in former roles as a GM. And I'm able, as a result, to help and support on that side of things. And I think you've seen, or we believe, that we've had more successful windows last summer, where we believe we fixed the offense of the team, and then this winter where we thought we fixed the defense of the team. Again, those results have not been forthcoming as we hoped, but we really thought our arrow was pointing up as a result of those windows. And as a result, it didn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion, to change the front office structure. So, and keep in mind what goes into those transfer windows then. Yes, I'm here to help and support, but that's our analysts, that's our scouts, that's our talent evaluators. Those are all, a group of people working together to identify and sign these players. It's our salary cap people, it's our contract people. And so to change, any of that group or the head of that group a couple weeks out from a summer transfer window where maybe we have a chance to improve our team, that didn't make a lot of sense from a pragmatic perspective. So that's what informed our judgment. The thing that the belief that we as a talent evaluation department, that we believe that we have the ability to make an impact on the team in the summer from that side of things. And then we have a new voice in the locker room from the coaching side of things. And hopefully that the combination of those factors is what drives us forward.
Thanks, Felipe. Next question, Allison Mastrangelo. Allison, go ahead.
Hey Garth, I was just curious, when did it come to your attention that you were going to make this coaching change? I mean, is it as simple as if he had won, then he would still be the coach, or could it even been sooner if they had lost to Miami?
Look, we have discussions about every aspect of the club going forward. In this case, we had a meeting and decided late last night and made a recommendation to Mr. Blank, and ultimately that recommendation was accepted, and then we met with the coaching staff this morning and moved forward.
Next question will go to Joe Patrick. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Garth. The team has dealt with significant injuries this season to significant players. I think, according to your frameworks, Pineda has only had 54 of his 81 games at 8+3 or worse, or I'm sorry, 54 games with the 9+2 or better, I should say. How did those injuries factor into evaluating whether Pineda could move forward as the coach?
Look, as you guys know by now, I'm a data guy. What I would say is in any coaching situation, there are almost always imperfections. Whether those are injuries or suspensions or players that aren't available or a DP spot that's not filled. And, one of the arts of managing is managing those imperfect lineups. So, part of the analytics behind the 9+2, and for those who aren't familiar, our belief is basically if you have 9 starting level players and you have 2 reserve players in that group, that you should be able to more or less replicate the results of a full strength team. And you see that there's a different points per game usually playing 9+2 or better. There's a slight drop off at 8.3, and then it gets much steeper after you go with more and more reserves within a team. So look, was that a factor? Yes. But when we evaluate Gonzalo's body of work as a head coach, it's parts of 4 seasons. It's over 100 games in charge. And so we do think that, we controlled for, a performance over time, and we didn't just take any kind of small sample that might be overly influenced by an injury record per se.
Next question will go to Bailey Burmester. Bailey, go ahead.
Hey, Garth, you've talked about the fact that the arrow was pointing up after last season and the data, so to speak, as well. I'm curious, and from your perspective, what do you believe has been the hardest part about this team trying to find consistency on the field?
Man, if we had the answer to that, I think we would have addressed it as best we could. It's been probably the most frustrating chapter of my career. We really thought coming into this season that we had assembled a team that was going to, really be competitive and really do well. And, we set lofty goals for ourselves, like finishing in the top 4 in the East and advanced out of Leagues Cup and winning a playoff series. And, and those goals haven't changed. But now we need to hopefully go forward with some discipline and some structure and some determination, and understand that, nothing is going to be given to us. We come to work every day in this kind of Arthur Blank created paradise. And, it's one thing to be grateful for it. It's another to earn it. And I think that's what we have to do going forward, is we have to show that we're willing to be gritty. We're willing to be determined. We're willing to fight and overcome adversity. I think too often this season we've seen things like when we score, we immediately get scored upon, or when we make a mistake, we're not resilient. We come and make another mistake and compound that, and then things snowball. And we started off tying home games, then we started losing home games, and we haven't been resilient on the road. So I think there's a number of things, but I think they go at the end of the day to the character of the team. And again, we're hopeful that with the potential of the team, with the talent on the team, that with a different voice, hopefully we can affect a quick turnaround.
Next question, Mike Conti. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Garth. I know the press release said that you would start a global search for a new manager tomorrow. I'm wondering, is Rob Valentino a candidate for the permanent managerial job, and also who will make up his technical staff?
Yes. So, yes, Rob, is going to be judged based on his results. And what I would tell you, Mike, is we're in no hurry with the coaching search. Obviously, when you're talking about, in particular, candidates from Europe, we're in the summer, and some of those guys will pop up here as we go. But really, we're interested in, can we get more out of this group? And as you know, I've had some success with an interim coach in the past in Seattle. And so we're going to do everything we can to support Rob and give him the best possible chance to succeed. And in the meantime, we're going to continue to prepare the club, again, not only to make the playoffs this year, but to be prepared long term. So if Rob proves that he is deserving of that, certainly that would be a great thing for us. And in the meantime, we're going to try to be prepared should that not prove the case.
Next question, Rob Usry. Rob, go ahead.
Hi, Garth. You mentioned the previous 2 transfer windows. What can the fans expect from this transfer window coming up? Will the club be active in trying to overhaul the roster to try to get to the playoffs? And also, can you comment on the recent reports of Yorgos Giacomakis possibly being sold?
Yeah, so look, those things go hand in hand. To the Yakamaki stuff, look, we're never going to negotiate in the media. So don't believe everything you read on the internet. I know I woke up and was told that the deal was done already. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I would know if that were the case. So, look, we're going to long term, we're going to be committed to players that are committed to us. And, we have had conversations with Cruz Azul, happy to confirm that. But there is nothing that's happened at this point. When you say how we're going to approach the summer transfer window, we have all 3 DP spots filled. We cannot change the status of any of those. We cannot buy anyone down. And so, look, could you see us tinkering around the edges of the team? You could. Obviously, it's been out in the public that the possible transfer of Yorgos, which you just asked about, the possible move of Thiago Almada. We've talked about that for months. And truly, I will be most concerned if we hit the point where no one is asking about our players. The fact that we have transfer rumors about our guys is a good thing. That means that they're good players. It means that other teams want them and want to pay for their services. So that's part of the business. But the answer to your question is, if you're looking for big changes, big evolutions of the roster, those are purely dependent on what happens in terms of sales of DPs in particular. And again, our narrative, our belief is that after the last 2 transfer windows, we have a number of talented players in that roster, and that the potential of the roster as a whole is better than the results we've seen. And as I think Sam cited, the underlying numbers have some support for that. And so hopefully we can reap the benefit of that in the second half of the season.
Thanks. Next question, back to Doug. Doug, go ahead.
Hey, Garth, 2 questions for you. You mentioned that Bocanegra will be part of the summer transfer window, but will he be involved in the coaching search? considering that his contract is up in a season and a half, and is promoting an assistant who is already on staff. How do you describe that as a new voice when he is a voice that's been in the locker room and with many of these players for many seasons now?
Yeah, and let me try to do the first one first because I know Mike Connie asked about that. Mike, and I apologize I didn't get to that part of your question. Doug, thanks for raising it again. In terms of coaching committee, obviously at the end of the day, the decision will be made by Arthur Blank, and I will be leading the coaching search, and we will ultimately have a leadership group from Atlanta United with some input and advice from AMBSE, and we'll make a recommendation to Arthur, and then we'll go from there in terms of the coach. And again, I want to stress there is no timetable for that. We don't view that as screamingly urgent. We view again a little bit more stability. We're going to take our time. We're going to talk to a lot of people. We're going to be very thorough in our evaluation of the next coach. In terms of new voice, we know and that different coaches have different, I would say, tactical ideas and different approaches. And when Gonzalo was here, he brought in 2 assistants with him, Diego and Eugenio, and we've parted ways with them as well. And 2 other just exemplary human beings, great stewards of the club, upheld our core values, really hard workers, really good folks. But we parted with them in an effort to get exactly what you asked about, to get that new voice. Because whether it was reality or perception, I think there was a perception that Diego and Eugenio were in the boat with Gonzalo. And certainly Rob was supportive and part of that team. But we're going to continue now with Rob, who maybe will have a little bit different viewpoint on some things, along with Liam, along with Jose, our video analyst. And so we do have a number of staff members that are being retained. We do think they're going to take a new approach, and it could be we are going to look at, do we need to hire an additional assistant coach to try and replace the hole left with Diego and Eugenio's departures.
Next question back to Sam. Sam, go ahead.
Garth, you talked about dealing with some of the imperfections that come when that team is injured or dealing with issues or just absences in general. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you kind of view as like an ideal game model for MLS, because MLS inherently kind of has these issues that pop up where you aren't perfect from time to time. Was Gonzalo's maybe too predicated on possession, and would you look for a game model in the next coach that maybe allows the team to play against the ball a little more often?
What I would say, Sam, is those are technical questions that I think we need to ask prospective coaching candidates, right? I don't think there is one way to play that is superior to all others. When I say that the path to success is 80% talent, 20% coaching, that isn't really a rap at coaching. What I mean is in a salary capped world, you have to constantly find value. And so your game model, actually, one of the biggest things about it is it needs to be pragmatic, because you can have the absolute perfect player profile of everyone who would be the best at that thing, and it might be utterly impractical in terms of trying to implement it within a salary cap system, particularly one with guaranteed contracts where we have to be really thoughtful about moving players in and out so we're not incurring long-term costs to the club. And as you know, since I've arrived, we've spent 3 transfer windows trying to get back to that optimized state. So I think when we talk about tactics, when we talk about approach, I think you have to have some flexibility. I think it's perfectly fine to have a desire to play with the ball. Certainly Columbus Crew have made that look very attractive and their play with the ball. And I think that you can be successful as well playing against the ball when you look at some of the teams that press around our league and have had consistent success with it. So I think it's a long-winded way to say is I think you need to be able to do both. I think the players on this team are capable of doing both. And I think really what it comes down to now is, can we simplify things a little bit, put everyone in the role that maybe maximizes their skill set, and hopefully use that to have a pragmatic approach that allows us to fight for a playoff spot this season.
We have time for a few more. We're going to go back to Allison Mastrangelo. Allison, go ahead.
Hey Garth, this might be kind of a general question, but what are you just looking for now, like qualities when it comes to looking for a new head coach? And what do you truly believe it takes for a head coach to be able to lead his team to a championship?
Um, look, I think they have to be a leader of men. I think they have to, elicit the best performances from their best players. I think there's a huge element again in MLS of being able to man manage and to understand to meet all the players where they are and to be able to communicate effectively with them, both good news and bad news. And so I think that's a really important quality going forward. I think someone that has at least some familiarity with MLS is important in a coach going forward. I think it's still a very special league in terms of its the salary cap is the most restrictive here. And I don't mean just in dollars, but in terms of regulation. So you really have to we don't need a coach that understands that, but we need to, acknowledge that reality in terms of team building and what we're able to do short term and long term. So we'll weigh all those things. I don't think there is one way to coach that's better than the others. I've had 5 coaches in my career. I've made the playoffs with all of them, won titles with 2 of them. So, hopefully Rob can join us and be the 6th on that list. And in the meantime, we'll look around and try to identify other people that uphold the core values of AMBSE and we think can be effective coaching not just any MLS team, but the team here in Atlanta, where we have the biggest fan base. And we are blessed and lucky to have the resources of Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. So with this incredible infrastructure, it's going to be very easy to recruit. We will be inundated with candidates for this job. And, I think this is a job that we'll be pretty good at. We'll use some data, some analytics, and some interviews and really sift through what'll be an avalanche of candidates, I have no doubt.
Next question, Felipe. Go ahead, Felipe.
Thank you, Chris. Garth, you mentioned really the exceptional work environment that the players are welcome to every single day, the facilities. Are you putting the players on notice as well? Is how much of this is on them, and what do they have to show for the remainder of the season? And just you and I have talked about stability being so important at a successful organization. How frustrated are you, with having to begin a search for another head coach in this team's short history?
Look, I think part of what I was doing, Felipe, from day one here was evaluating what was real and what was fantasy. And we haven't made the progress so far that I'd hoped. I think that's just that is a reality. I have not one modicum less ambition for what this club can be and what it should be. And so we are all on notice in the second half of the season. I mean, let's be honest. We changed the number of the players over the last 2 transfer windows. Now we've changed the coach. We believe we have talent, but it's incumbent upon us now to go on the field and prove that. Go out there and win games and dig in and be gritty and fight and scratch and claw and be committed to the club. And that's what it's going to take to turn this season around. Again, we believe we have that potential, but at the end of the day, we either will or we won't. And the goals haven't changed. And if we reach those goals, then we'll continue on this path. And if we don't, then we'll have to go back and start again. And look, we're trying to avoid that instability. We're trying to avoid starting all over. And that's why we've made the change that we've made now. And hopefully it's enough to right the ship and get us going in the right direction. Because again, we believe that the guys in that locker room are capable of better results.
Last 2 questions, Joe Patrick and then Doug. Joe, go ahead.
Garth, I know you're not going to give me a deadline, and you've said that the team is not going to rush a coach in, but the team is at a state far enough down the table where there's some urgency to try to get somebody, and I would imagine to try to get the team back into the competitive range where it wants to be. Is there any sort of timetable where fans can expect this move to happen?
No, I'm not going to put anything on it at all, Joe. So just doing some math. We played, I believe, 16 games. So 16 games, point per game. That's not good enough. That's not a playoff pace. In terms of sustained periods of play, the most you're able to do really over an extended period is 2 points per game. So if you say we have 18 games left, that gives you 36 points. 36 plus 16 is 52. That's more points than we had last year, right? Where we were able to host at least one playoff game. So, I think that we've done this with enough time where we believe that we can have an impact. So again, our thesis is we believe we've had a couple good transfer windows. We believe we could be pointed in the right direction. Even at the start of the season, I think we thought we were pointed in the right direction. And then we've had this little spiral where we've had, one of the worst stretches in franchise history, and with one win in 11 games. And that's been a bummer. And it's really been a wake-up call. And again, I think it's a siren to all of us that, again, that unfortunately we needed to make a change. But now we need to go prove it. Now we need to go prove and say, hey, are we as good as we think we are? Do we have this ability to make the playoffs here? And, but again, we believe we've effected a change with enough time to do that. And as a result, we're going to give Rob a chance to succeed. We're going to support him. And we are going to lean into our thesis that we believe we have talent in that locker room and that this group is capable of more. We don't want to change coaches every 6 months or every year or two. We want to have stability because that is the only way to consistently build things. And, the way I've said it internally is we want to fix this in a way where it stays fixed.
Last question, Doug. Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a follow-up and then a new question. Just as a follow-up, Garth, when I asked about if Bocanegra was going to be part of the coaching search, you mentioned a whole lot of different people and things, but not him. So I just trying to clarify, will he be a part of this coaching search? And secondly, the team's experienced a lot of injuries, going back to Pineda's first full season in 2021. What responsibility is the club taking for those injuries on the results? And are there going to be any changes to medical staff, training staff, practices to try to minimize these going forward for Valentino and whomever the next coach might be?
Yeah, what I would say, Doug, is that we're evaluating all aspects of our sporting operation, and certainly our performance staff, our medical staff is part of that. Again, I think we actually did a very good job last year from an injury rate perspective. And you have to be very careful, I think, about taking injury samples over, less than half a season. So I think you have to look at the body of work. And over the limited time I've been here, again, I thought that that group did a good job last year. And yes, we've had some bad injury luck this year. But again, I think that we are capable of overcoming it, maybe in a little bit more efficient manner than we had. And I apologize, Doug. I know you had a second one besides the injury rate one. I want to make sure I get to it.
Doug.
You mentioned when I asked about is Bocanegra
coaching search, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So look, again, we're going to have a bunch of folks internally that are involved with that. But I think it's important to say that I'm going to lead it. Personally, I will be in there. I will be in the interviews. I will be doing the research, and that we will ultimately make a recommendation to Arthur Blank, and we'll see what direction he wants to go. But part of the reason I say that, Doug, is again, I want to give. I had some success in Seattle by supporting an interim coach, and we do want to give Rob a chance to be successful here. He was successful in his last interim stint in charge, and so when I do things like refuse to put a timetable, when I do things to say it's not screaming urgent, that's why I present the math and say this is achievable. If you believe we have a good team, then with a new voice, with a new start, that team should start accruing points at a higher level. And again, if it doesn't, then we need to spend more time really evaluating what are the root causes of that. Then maybe we haven't been as successful as we had hoped over the last year, and then we have to maybe make deeper changes.
All right. Thanks everyone for your time. If you have any follow-up questions, please let me know. Thank you, Garth.